All right, so I am going to get started. Thank you everybody for coming, and good luck to those without earphones to be able to listen. And so this is Not a Love Song, How Spotify Uses Tableau Public. And so in lieu of an agenda slide, and because this is all about Spotify, here is a playlist of all of the topics that I'm going to cover in this presentation. And so we are currently in the intro, and so welcome to the intro. So in this presentation, I'll be showing off several fun projects I worked on involving Tableau Public and Spotify data. I'll demonstrate some tricks in Tableau so you can get a peek behind the curtain of how these visualizations were made and some of the choices that went into publishing those visualizations. So throughout this, I hope this inspired you to think about your data differently or how you could tell your own data stories. So let's continue with an intro. So a small bit about me. I've been using Tableau for a little over 3 years. I started out making visualizations about music and music festivals, scraping data from Last.fm and the Spotify API, and publishing that to my own Tableau Public page. I entered and won an IronViz feeder contest about music, which put me on the IronViz stage in Las Vegas 3 years ago. I kept publishing visualizations on Tableau Public, like my Spells of Harry Potter viz, which led me to become a Tableau Public ambassador, and eventually landed my dream job at Spotify, making Tableau visualizations about music. And so before some of the fun stuff, just some, so everyone knows how we at Spotify use Tableau Desktop and Server. So we're currently on version 2018.1, desktop and server, 8 cores. We have about 350 desktop users, which is a mix of data scientists, engineers, and analysts. And all of them have the ability to publish to our Tableau server. And we actually only use a production site. We don't use a dev, a test, a QA, or have a promote to production process. Some would say that's a bit of a Wild West, but it's working well for us. And myself, coming from a Tableau Public background, one of the first things I did when I started at Spotify, and when I got my hands on the Spotify data, was started answering my own questions, making my own visualization, and petitioning the right people internally to let me publish those things. And so we have one main method of publishing insights, and that's the Spotify Insights blog, now known as the For the Record blog. And this is a PR-owned blog containing interesting Spotify news and insights driven by Spotify data. And a lot of time, they include Tableau Public dashboards embedded within, or Tableau was used to do the analysis. And so almost all of the things that I talk about are on one of these sites, and I encourage you to check it out. And also quickly a disclaimer, so we take privacy very seriously. Any and all insights that are shared by Spotify are done so in aggregates, and they contain no personally identifiable information. We don't share sensitive business information. For instance, all stream numbers are normalized, like a 0 to 1, so we're not sharing the exact number of streams that a song or something might have. And so this is how we can legally publish some of our findings and how we appease like PR and legal. So up first is all about the song Total Eclipse of the Heart. So remember last year when everybody in the US was obsessed with the eclipse? Well, shortly after, a data scientist at Spotify posted in Slack, does anyone have experience with map visualization? I could use some help with a pretty fun, quick hit project. And so I saw that and I responded, well, Tableau can do some pretty quick drag and drop map vizzing. Let's get on a hangout. And so the data that he had was streams of total eclipse of the heart on August 21st, which was the day of the eclipse, in 10-minute intervals when the eclipse was passing the US. And just to remind you, the eclipse passed from the left to the right. So after about 20 minutes on a hangout, we created this visualization in Tableau, and so this is the first of several demos. And so this is a map showing each state streaming of the song. And when we put that 10-minute interval on the pages shelf to animate it, we could very quickly see that streaming of the song literally shadowed the movement of the eclipse. And so we thought, like, this is fascinating. We need to publish this. How do we go about doing that? So we spoke to the right people, and we decided that the way that we were going to share this was in the form of a GIF. And so this is the GIF that we created, and it's actually just screenshots of a Tableau dashboard and just like every frame that I stitched together in Photoshop and like formatted it correctly And so we were able to share this on the Spotify Insights blog, which got shared onto Reddit and made the top of the Data is Beautiful for that day, and was also picked up by sites like CNET. And so you can check out, if you Google it, you'll find that story. So the next one is all about emojis. So to get you in the mood, a little quiz, just like think internally. Based on the emojis, what artist do you think is being described by this? So this, the bee and the queen, is Beyonce. Bugs and like people walking in the UK, that's the Beatles. A lightning emoji and an emoji that literally looks like him is David Bowie. And this one's a bit harder, like a movie or something that's based on books with dragons and wolves is the composer of Game of Thrones, Ramin Djawadi. So all of that was actually data-driven based on over 35 million user playlists that contain emojis in the title. And so you can imagine if we connect every title emoji with the artist and the tracks that are in that playlist, we get this massive scale, like this massive network where we can see these emoji artist pairing really emerge. And we can tell a very interesting story. Here's some examples of what playlist with emojis would look like a running with a running emoji, or my personal pancake good morning playlist. And so what we really loved about this is that emojis encapsulate like a complex cultural meaning in that tiny little symbol, and they're almost meatier than words in describing a fan's feeling for an artist. And so this is the end result. We published a Spotify Insights blog post about it, and it was actually the first dashboard that we published onto Tableau Public, and it's these 3 dashboards here and one of them is about describing the top 10 unique emojis that are associated with over 5,000 of the top artists on Spotify. And so I'm going to demonstrate what we could do with this dashboard. So you can see that like the Drake #1 emoji is the fire emoji. And you can scroll through and really interact with this dashboard. I think I'm going to highlight Nicki Minaj's Queen and Peach. And you can also filter by different genres. So you can see the country artists are all like Western emojis, and the hip-hop artists are all like fire and EDM. Or you could also look at your own favorite emoji, which is like the poo emoji, and you can see which artists are most associated with that. And you can see like Psy and Kids Bops are heavily associated with poo, and I would agree with that. And so as part of that, I wanted to come up with a story that I could share with y'all. So I'm going to, from start to finish, do an analysis of trying to find a country's unique emoji. So like the most unique emoji that every country uses based on the user's country. So I'm going to start where most analysis projects at Spotify start, with BigQuery. So this is where all of our data is stored, and a lot of stuff is going to be blurred. But I'm going to find the tables that I need, which is this emoji playlist table, which contains the name of the playlist, which you can see over 35 million records here. And it contains the name of it as well as the user's country that they're from. And so I'm going to query that. I'm going to paste in a query that I've already done. I'm going to run that query. And you can see the results are a column for the emoji, a column for the country. What's also important is that it has a column of the emoji's Unicode ID, and then it's the number of pairings that are in that. And because this is large and I'm doing this in the browser right now, I'm saving it as a table so that in Tableau I can just quickly connect to this table instead of using custom SQL. And so that is my next. Is to jump into Tableau and connect to Google BigQuery using the native BigQuery connector. I'm going to authenticate. I'm going to find the table that I just made and drag that in there. And it's important, I'm going to turn it into an extract. Almost all of our dashboards at Spotify are done with extracts on top of BigQuery, obviously to make things faster, and so we're not constantly querying BigQuery. So I'm running that extract, and now I'm in Tableau. And because I know this is about country and emoji, I'm just going to drag those two things out there, just to like see what all of my data looks like and spot check. I'm going to make a bar chart and drag that there, and sort of just like scan. I can see that I have about 78,000 country emoji pairings. So to whittle that down, I'm going to first use a ranking to just get the top 10 emojis per each country. So I'm doing that with a table calc of a rank, and I'm editing the table calc, setting it to unique to settle any ties, and setting it at the emoji level. And so I did that in the detail. I always like make ad hoc little calculations in the detail. So I dragged that to filter, filtered it to the top 10. And so now I'm seeing 10 emojis per country. And I want to view this in a bit better way, so I'm going to make it look like a matrix or a grid like the other one I was showing. So I'm just dragging some pills around in order to get it looking more so you can see more emojis on the screen at one time. And so I'm dragging that ranking over to columns, making it discrete so it's ordered from 1 to 10. And you can start seeing the top 10 used emojis per country. One of the problems here, there's a few, is that almost all of these emojis are the same for each country. You can see like the heart eyes and the music symbols, and that doesn't tell a very interesting story. And so when I was talking to the researchers at Spotify about this, they pointed me to a formula that could help me get at like the uniqueness or like what are the interesting stories, rather than just a bias of the most popular one. And that formula was the point-wise mutual information formula, which looks like a lot, but the key thing inside that log is the probability of an emoji in a country appearing at the same time over the probability of emoji times the probability of country. And so that really highlights the interesting thing that maybe a country uses one emoji way more than any other country does. And that's what it looks like in Tableau, a lot of LOD calculation. And so I'm going to hop back into Tableau. I'm going to create that calculated field by pasting that in. I'm going to call it PMI. Hit apply, OK. So I had previously built that ranking based on the just sum of emoji count. So I'm going to redo that, but based on the PMI. So I'm going to set that rank again, edit it, set it at the emoji level, unique. I'm going to replace all my other instances of that ranking with that. So now I have distinct emojis, and there's two problems that I'm going to solve. The first one I'm going to solve is that Tableau is rendering some of these emojis very poorly. And emojis, depending on what the browser is or the platform, it relies on that browser to actually render it. And in this case, Tableau is not doing it correctly. And so because I want to publish this externally and I want other people on Tableau Public to see the same thing I'm seeing, I'm actually going to use custom shapes instead of text to represent these emojis. And so with over 2,000 emojis, you can imagine that there's the job to manually assign those to custom shape could be pretty tedious, but that is where that field, the Unicode website ID comes in. Because if I sort my Tableau, if I sort the Tableau field by Unicode website ID, and separately I've downloaded all of the emoji images, and I've sort of appended the Unicode ID onto the file names so that in my file browser, all of the emojis are in the same order that they are in Tableau. And I'm going to, I'll bring out my folder, and you can see all of the emojis are in the same order that Tableau is, so that when I assign that custom shape, it just in one click, all of that maps one-to-one. And I use this trick a lot in a bunch of other future things that I'll be showing off. And so I'm just spot checking, making sure all of those things match. And so I go back into the viz I was working on, and I replace the text that I'm using with shapes. So I changed it to a shape mark type, and I dragged emoji onto shape, and you can see now the actual images are appearing instead of just text, and everything looks nice. But now there's another problem, and I dragged the sum of emojis on there so I could look on the tooltip. Some of these emojis are only used like a very small amount of time, and the story I'm trying to tell, while it's about uniqueness or distinctiveness, I also want it to feature emojis that we're familiar with. So I'm actually going to sort of like have two things affecting my like set. I want popular emojis, and then I want distinctive ones. So I'm setting a threshold that an emoji has to have been used 1,000 times by that country in order for it to take a part in this analysis. And this is, I can do this because this is sort of like for fun, bizzing, data art, data storytelling. I probably wouldn't be able to be this loose with like my real like analysis. So I applied that filter, and because this is about country, I'm going to just show a map of the globe, and on top of each country I'm going to show one emoji, the top most popular distinctive one. And so I'm just rearranging the pills to make a map visualization. And so here you can see the most distinctive emoji per country. Scandinavia likes their flags, and the United States likes this exasperated emoji. And so that was the emoji project. You can check that out on our Tableau Public or the Spotify Insights blog. And I'm moving on to the next project, which is Last Christmas, and all about crafting a story. So Spotify actually publishes a lot of information on everynoise.com about genres and about, at this link, about Christmas. And so PR came to me and they wanted to do a Christmas story last year in 2017. And so I pointed to them and said, like, well, we have this like hairball spaghetti graph of every country's Christmas stream share. We can probably make something look a little better, more intuitive for our users, or viewers on Tableau Public. And so my first take was the bump chart, where like I just, on every day I sort of rank which countries listen to the most Christmas music. And I was like, this is still a jumble of images, and it's not really conveying like a story that I want to do. So I thought again about the question I was trying to answer, which was like, when did a country start seriously streaming Christmas music? And I thought, seriously, well, maybe that's the date when a country's Christmas stream share is above 2%. So like they've hit this mark and now they're like gung-ho about Christmas. And so we created this dot plot visualization where on every date it puts the country's map on the date they hit that threshold. And so in that full view, you can see some interesting stories, such as the Philippines starting very early, October 9th, and then Scandinavia, Canada, the US. And then you can see like the big chunk of distribution of countries started seriously streaming Christmas music in November, followed by Mexico. And so I'll dive into Tableau and sort of just make that dot plot very quickly by bringing out all of the countries onto the details shelf and bringing out that date where it says over 2% onto the columns. And you can start seeing that like distribution take shape. And I'm going to change it to a shape and bring in my country map circles. And because it's a timeline, I actually don't want a discrete pill I'm changing it to continuous, but that puts everything on the top. So I'm going to use index to, within each date, get them to stack on top of each other. So if there were 6, it would just stack 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that is the core of making that visualization. The visualization was used in part of a larger dashboard that helped control some of how the viewer could see different aspects of how a country streams Christmas music. So you can see their like actual line of Christmas streaming as well as their top 10 Christmas tracks. And that is the link on Tableau Public if you want to view and look at that. So up next is about maps, grammable, hexagonal. And so what I mean by that, so I was asked to contribute to this project by PR for Black History Month. And they were working with Instagram to highlight the top Black female artists on Black Girl Magic playlist, which is a popular Instagram hashtag that highlights black females. So the project started out with a spreadsheet, which was just artists and states of the top artists. And so this is the end result of what that was. Because the focus was on the artist and their images, we made this hex tile map that uses artist photos as the states, and it can be easily consumed as a static image when shared on Instagram, or you could interact with it on Tableau Public to see an artist's top Instagram post or see links to Spotify and Instagram. And so I really liked this format. So when I saw the original data, I knew that a hex tile map was something I wanted to try. And having seen other people do this on Tableau Public, I knew I could just Google to find some instructions. And so I actually found an official Tableau blog about it, which had a nice spreadsheet that does the mapping of states to rows and columns to get them in that hex tile format. And so I thought that this was a really good format, and that was in February. So I knew that Pride season was coming up, and I was like, I want to do this again for Pride Month, about highlighting queer LGBTQ artists. And so we did that, and so I prepped the hexagons in Photoshop, like choice of on here. And so now I'll build that viz in Tableau. So you'll see there's a couple data sources. One of them is that spreadsheet that had the state mapping to like the rows and columns, and the other is my artist information. So I'm bringing all the artists out. I'm coloring it just so you can see the 6 different ones. And I am starting to bring out the rows and columns for the tiling, and I need to reverse the axis. And you can start seeing the shape of the US appearing. And I need to sub out these circles for the shapes that I've prepared, the hexagon, so I'm connecting to that and assigning that palette. And I have color on it, so I need to take color off. And you can see now the hexagons of the artist appearing in the US. And because this is Pride and it's colorful and rainbow, I wanted to put a border around each of the images. So I do that with a dual axis where the hexagons are filled in with the color that's associated with them. And I'm formatting that around. And so this is what the end result looks like to USA with Pride, showing off the top LGBTQ playlisted artists for each state. All right, and so the next project is about Joy Division, and it's like a tongue-in-cheek vizzing. So you've probably all seen Joy Division's iconic Unknown Pleasures album art, probably as a tattoo or a t-shirt at Hot Topic. And last summer, if you were following DataViz Twitter, you probably saw that joy plots were a hot topic, and that was a data visualization style that mimicked the album art. And it's really just a bunch of area charts that sort of stack behind each other in some sort of offset. And so I was thinking I can probably make this exact thing in Tableau. And so the original album art is based on 80 time series. And so I thought, what if I make a joy plot about Joy Division? And so I took 80 days of streaming of Joy Division, and I put that into Tableau, and I'm going to make it into a joy plot. So it's starting out where every row is a separate time series, a separate day of streaming across a whole day. And so to get into that joy plot format, I'm going to take date off of rows so that all of the dates are now on top of each other. I'm going to change the mark type to area, and I'm going to fill in each area with black with a white border. And so I'm just showing you like I'm changing the border around. So I want it to be white. And I built in this calculation that had parameters so that I could tweak it to make it look exactly how I wanted. But it's really all the tweaks are just like stacking all of the measure value up so that they are like sort of, the illusion is that they're behind each other. And so this is what that final result looks like. It was posted, it was shared on Twitter, posted on the Insights blog, and you can check that out. And so the final thing I'm going to talk about is the planets, a musical solar system, and a DataViz project for all. And so you've probably been thinking like, oh, Skyler, you have access to a bunch of really cool data at Spotify. I would love to make things like this. And so this project is actually like taking my non-employee hat on and something that I made for my own Tableau Public profile. And so it happened when I was listening to Gustav Holst, The Planet. And if you're not familiar, it's like a classical music piece where each track is a different planet. And so I thought, and based on the album art, I was like kind of inspired to say like, oh, I could probably recreate a solar system map, but using data, listening data about that album. And so actually, to get this data in Spotify, if you just go to this album page and you hover over that like third column, you can actually see the exact number of streams that that track has had. So I just took a few minutes to manually scrape that data, and then I also took the time. And so on the right, you can see the end result where the planets are sized by the number of streams. So they're like a remix of the solar system map, and they rotate around the center based on the track length. And so I wanted it to be animated, and so when I posted it on Tableau Public, there's obviously not an animation feature, but I put it onto my own site and used JavaScript to sort of like just update it every second so that it would redraw these planets around. And so if you go to that website, you'll see it'll just keep spinning forever and ever. And so just to show off some other things that you could do if you want to get some Spotify data, we have a web API that has a lot of interesting information. And similar to the project I just did, you can use the album and artist page to manually scrape some of that data. And I debated whether to share this, but it's very in the beginning stages of a Spotify web data connector where you can, within Tableau, connect to your Spotify account and get some interesting information about your listening history or about tracks that are in your playlist. If anyone's like super into web data connectors and wants to help me out on this, I'd love that. And so those are all the projects that I was going to show. There's a lot more on the blogs and on our Tableau Public page. The takeaways here, be passionate. So all of the things that I showed you were sort of in my free time. My actual job at Spotify is not to make fun data stories. It was something that I sought after and like spent my own time doing. Another thing is to think about your data differently. So I know that we all don't work at companies where we can share like very interesting tidbits about like how humans interact with whatever data that we have. But maybe there's APIs or open data in your industry where you can use your industry expertise to actually develop a Tableau Public visualization and sort of help the knowledge share. So you can find me on Tableau Public. That's my profile on the left and the Spotify Insights profile on the right. And that is it. Thank you for the music. You can slide into my Twitter DMs. That's the best way to chat with me. My Twitter handle is Skyler Johnson. Or if you're looking to get a job at Spotify, you can look at spotifyjobs.com. Thank you.